All right, so today we've got the pleasure of speaking with Andrew. Andrew's a former student of ours that just got his results in not too long ago. So, Andrew, how's it feel? How'd you do?
Feels great. Happy to say I passed, and yeah, just man, it feels amazing. Just really feels good. Super, just proud of myself and thankful for honestly for y'all. I really don't think I could have passed it without y'all. So it's been a long process. So yeah, I'm just thankful it's finally here, finally a licensed engineer. So
Gotcha. Do you find yourself kind of remembering, oh, yeah, that's right, I did pass, and kind of reliving that moment a little bit and getting all those good feelings?
yeah, I actually joked with my wife and like yesterday I said, hey, you know what I didn't have to do today? Study. So like it's been such a huge part the last, because it's been over pretty much a year of studying. So yeah, in fact, when I was done with the test, I was like, it really hasn't hit me yet because studying has been such ingrained in me as part of my everyday routine. And so, yeah, now that it's done, yeah, I have to have those moments where I don't have to study today. So yeah, I certainly do. Yeah, for sure, have those moments.
Yeah, it's almost like, what do I do with myself today? Or I'm gonna sleep in this weekend. Can I do
That's
that?
right.
And
Yeah,
and a lot of times, people don't realize it's not just a big sacrifice for the person studying; it's the whole family. It's
absolutely.
just as much as a big win for your wife, And I don't know if you have kids or anything like that, but it's a win for everyone because number one, they get their husband back, right? They get you
Right.
back, and of course, all of the wonderful opportunities passing the exam and getting your license brings, right? It brings for your whole family.
That's
So
right.
yeah, congrats, job well
Thank you.
done, tremendous accomplishment. Definitely enjoy it for as long as you can. I'm sure you guys have already celebrated a little bit. Keep celebrating, and for those watching, what part of the electrical industry are you in? What part of the industry do you work in?
Yeah, so I work for a power company. I work on the distribution side. All my engineering has been field engineering. A lot of pretty much everything that goes with the distribution side: capacitor banks, regulators, reclosers, coordination, even into the substation, relays, stuff like that. So yeah, just the distribution side of the power company. So
So you work for the utility directly, or are you a company that
that's
works
right.
with? So you work directly
Yeah,
for the
I work for
utility.
the utility directly. It's an investor-owned utility. So work for them directly. We cover 4 states, but I work specifically in Mississippi. Um, so yeah,
Wow. So you probably see quite a little bit of everything.
for sure, absolutely. A lot of stuff. Like I said, I've touched pretty much everything on the distribution side, all the way from the substation to the meter at your customer's house, as far as power quality, stuff like that. And yeah, just I've seen a lot of stuff, and yeah, for sure. And I feel like that really helped me with a lot of the parts of the exam. So
Yeah, I bet. How about what level of voltages do you work with then?
yeah, so our distribution side, we are 13.8 line to line and 8 kV line to ground. We do have some 7200 1247 out there, but we're primarily 8 13.8. And then our transmission side, it ranges. We're 115, 69, all the way up to 230. Those are the three primary transmission voltages we work with.
Gotcha. I'm guessing you got a pair of well-worn boots and a hard hat somewhere within reach. Is that right?
Absolutely. And that's the fun part is
That
getting
is so fun.
outside and man, getting in the substation and even getting out to when you're programming reclosers or you're troubleshooting regulator banks and cat banks and everything like that. Getting out there and getting to be with the linemen and the troublemen and stuff like that. So for sure, that's like I said, that's the fun part to me is really getting outside and putting your hands on the equipment and stuff like that. So it's been a lot of fun, and I've even a big part of what I did for a while was substation switching, line switching, everything like that in our operations center. So that was a lot of fun. Just really because in there you get to really work with people outside of just distribution. You're working with people in substation, distribution, and transmission. So you get to meet a lot of people. You get to work with a lot of people, and really see how the companies ran. It's a 24/7 operation, so it was a lot of fun working in there too.
Yeah, and it really helps. You kind of get to see the entire picture, not just
That's
you know,
right.
you see the generation side, or you're close to it. You see everything that it takes to go from there to the customer. You see the end user, the person that's
That's
using
right.
the power. Yeah, I've got it's been a while since I've been in the field, but I'm right there with you. That's the fun side. Typically, I'd go through a pair of Red Wings. You know, I was lucky if they lasted a year.
Yeah.
I did a lot of distribution work myself, and there's nothing like those real tangible wins
Right.
when you're working on a problem and it's like it finally is resolved and the lights come back on, literally, right? Lights come back on.
That's right.
You hear the hum of a large transformer finally getting power. And usually it's in the middle of the night. So it's a
Yeah.
great feeling because then you get to go home, right? Maybe sleep for a couple
That's
hours.
right.
But yeah, I'm right there with you. I feel bad for engineers that don't get the opportunity to spend that much time in the field. You miss out on a lot, and you can learn really quickly. So if anyone's watching this and if you've ever thought about getting your feet dirty, again, literally do it. Don't hesitate. You learn a tremendous amount. It's super rewarding. You meet all sorts of different people, that make the industry work. So I can't recommend it enough. So nice to meet another field guy. Um, Now, talk to me. Was this the first time you took the P exam, or did you mention you had taken it before?
Yeah, so I took it in October of 2019, didn't pass, and then signed up for April 2020. Of course, COVID canceled that, and then again October 2020, COVID canceled that, and finally, they started the CBT, which opened up December 1st, and I signed up for December 16th. So this was the second time taking the test. Yeah, I was unsuccessful the first time.
Got it. So I'm really happy to have this opportunity to talk with you. So on this new YouTube series, How to Pass the CBT Exam, so far we've only talked to former students that passed on their first try. And in fact, our meeting today is great timing because someone even actually commented on one of the videos, saying something like, "Well, I wish they would interview someone that took it before and didn't pass." So this is great. So you've taken both the paper and pencil. You were unsuccessful your first attempt. You've also taken the new CBT format and you passed. What would you say were some of the biggest challenges associated with studying for the CBT exam and focusing on that compared to the older, now retired legacy paper and pencil format?
Right. I would say the biggest challenge, of course, when it first came out was just the unknown. I didn't know what it was going to be like, and basically the questions. I remember the first time the questions. I was thinking, man, some of those questions on there, I wouldn't have a clue about if I didn't have references or something like that. So that was kind of scary for me because I really going into this time felt really confident if I could have my references, especially and everything like that. So when I found out it was CBT, it really became when I studied, when I was taking practice exams, and I just practice exams, the quizzes, homework, stuff like that. I tried not to touch any of my notes or anything that I couldn't have in the exam. It was all, reference handbook, looking at that, going to that only. And it was only after I looked at a problem for X amount of minutes and couldn't solve it that I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to my notes because obviously this is giving me some problems where I need to actually refresh on it. And then I went back and looked at everything in my notes and, saw what I was doing wrong or saw what I couldn't solve. And so, yeah, the biggest challenge for me was just in my head, getting over that mental game of saying, I can't have my references. I have to look at the 75-page document to get anything I need. I did find comfort in them telling us, hey, if there's a question on the exam, you should be able to answer it from the handbook. So that did give me some ease as far as in the studying. But yeah, for sure, the biggest challenge to me was just getting over that mental block of not having your references and uh, and really practicing with just the handbook. But I'll say that after that initial mental block, just practice, practice, practice is what got me over it. And once it got to the exam, I really felt comfortable, just because I'll be honest, the more practice tests you take, practice questions, quizzes, and everything like that, the less you're looking through anything. You're just, okay, yeah, I know how to do this, or I know how to work through this. I remember going through a live class and us breaking down a phasor diagram or something like that to get through this. And so, honestly, the more and more practice, just the more and more comfortable I became, because the less dependent I was on any references. It was all, I've been here before. I've done this. I've seen something like this. Maybe I can work through it. So yeah, yeah, for sure. The biggest challenge was getting over that mental block, but practice, 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 really got me over it.
Great. Yeah. What you're saying is pretty much what we've heard echoed from just about every person we've talked to. Number one, the biggest challenge being the unknown, right? Same word that you used, the
Right.
unknown of it's a new format, number one. And number two, I don't have references anymore. So the only thing I have to bail me out in a question that I'm not comfortable with, or I don't know, or it's a subject I'm not good in, is either the handbook or the code book. So what else? So it sounds like, so I was going to ask, what you did to overcome these challenges, but I think you already answered that. So it sounds like you first, when you were solving problems, you try to solve them only using the handbook. Is that correct?
That's right.
So
That's
you
correct.
tried to solve them only with the handbook, and then maybe once you realize, okay, yeah, I gave it my best shot, but I'm not going to be able to solve this yet. So now let me go back and now let me learn it, and then maybe go back and then try to solve it
That's right.
again with just the handbook. So focusing on the handbook, getting used to only having the handbook to solve questions. And it sounds like just practice, practice, practice. That way, when you see something in the exam room, by that time you'll have developed familiarity. You won't be afraid of it, and you'll know how to approach it. Maybe not right away know how to get the answer, but at least know where to start to kind of slowly work your
That's
way
right.
towards that answer.
That's right. For sure.
Great. Excellent advice. How about how'd you find out about us? How'd you find out about electricalpereview.com and the service we provide?
Yeah. So, kind of funny story. I mean, of course, like a lot of people, I Google as soon as I'm getting ready to take the exam. It's prep courses, stuff like that. I Google that and I find electricalpereview.com and some other places. And the first time I took the exam, I really I saw electricalpereview.com and basically saw everything. I was like, it looks like a good course, but it requires a lot of time. And at the time, my wife was pregnant with our little girl, and I just honestly, I knew she'd be coming about the same time. So in my head, I was like, I don't really have time. And so I found another course. Uh, I don't know if it's okay to say I found School of PE, and so I signed up for them. I saw their like they had a demand, whatever, and so I was like, well, I can study when I want to. This will be a little bit more easier as far as time. So I can study when I want to, blah blah blah. And so I signed up for that. And man, to be honest, like when I got to the exam the night before, I was like kind of just fooling myself. Like I think I'm ready, but like I really knew because I was going through practice problems again, practice and a practice test. And I was like, I, I'm not ready at all. Like the way I was studying was because I didn't have time. It was just lying to myself, honestly, and I was just not prepared and um, at all. And so, um, I wait the time allotted whenever the results come back, find out I fail, and I was like, I got to do something different, and not, I just took a hard look at myself because I'm somebody who likes to, like, I pride myself on working hard and putting in hours. And I looked back and I really had to say, man, you didn't study really at all. And the way that you studied just wasn't effective. And so I went back and I thought, well, something's got to change this time. So I'm not going through this again as far as, I'm going to pass this time. And when I went back, I looked at electricalpeerreview.com again. In fact, I Googled basically how to pass the PE again, and I found your YouTube videos of how to pass the PE, and I saw you talking, and you mentioned like the unsuccessful person, and you were describing me to a T, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's me. I didn't think I had time, or the time I was putting in wasn't good quality time, and I was like, this guy gets it. Like he understands me, and I believe that he's setting up a course for success, and that's going to push me and really get me into the studying habit that I need and the routine that I need. And so I just knew from that video, okay, this is the course for me. So after I saw that, signed up, and it was from then on, like I followed what you put out, to a T. I was putting in hours every day. On the weekends, it was the 8-hour days. On Sundays, it was the 4-hour day or whatever it was. And yeah, so I followed the course, and it was awesome. I say this, and I know it sounds like crazy, but I really do mean this. If I would have passed the first time, just kind of guessing my way through that test, it honestly would have been a big disservice to me because I would not have been a qualified licensed engineer. I would have been somebody who just got lucky, so to speak. But finding this review course, I feel like 1,000 times better engineer than I was a year ago. And so honestly, I'm super thankful that the first time didn't work out because I went through this course and I learned so much. And I really do feel like, just like I said, 1,000 times better engineer. I feel like a licensed engineer, somebody who can actually go out there and answer things confidently and be a competent engineer. So
That's awesome. That's definitely a success story. Yeah, it feels good. Um, Not only having the authority that comes with, the 2-letter acronym PE at the end of our names, but really having the confidence to stand firm with our answer. Of course, we're not going to know everything, right?
right,
No one does, but it feels good being able to stand maybe in a crowded distribution substation, or maybe at a customer location, and being able to point things out and point them out confidently, and be sure of our answers and our knowledge.
right.
Excellent. How do you think our program prepared you specifically for the CBT format, having taken both paper and pencil? And I asked that because last semester it was a scramble for us. I believe the cancellation notice came out in August.
Right.
So we were in the beginning of our live class series. I think we're just down 1 or 2 classes, but we had to rapidly change quite a bit of our material. Definitely burning the midnight oil, putting the hours, late nights, weekends. I think we took 1 weekend off, myself and the whole team, during that whole time, where normally we don't work the weekends. But that quick transition period, when we were rapidly turning out new material that was AIT focused, AIT questions that are on the CBT exam, or focusing on the handbook formulas, how some of them, they look different, they look unfamiliar, foreign, but it's the same relationships. And we kind of went through deriving each of them once, and then we focused on just using them from then on out, and then focusing on the strategies of only having the reference handbook. How did we do? How was our job in preparing you for that new format?
Yeah. So honestly, it was awesome. It was like the class honestly didn't miss a beat. Y'all did a great job just getting like if I hadn't known, I wouldn't have known that y'all, were behind the scenes scrambling, getting stuff together as quickly as you could. It felt like, honestly, it was seamless. Live classes, like immediately, you were able to answer questions we had from the handbook. And you were deriving, like you said, deriving formulas from the handbook. You went in, I'm assuming, and can only assume that you went in, read the whole thing, and thought, okay, this is something that could, trip them up. This is something somebody's gonna have a question about. And you went in, and took care of that, and had answers for us coming into class, because sure enough, we had questions about it, and you had it prepared to show us basically, hey, this looks tricky, but this is what it actually is. You've seen this before. Don't get tripped up by this. You can do this. You drive certain things, and really kind of opened up our eyes to say, okay, yeah, I have seen that before, and okay, it really is that simple. It's just for some reason the NCs has decided to put it in this format or whatever. So, and then the AIT questions, again, I thought really you really did a really good job of giving us a chance to see some AIT practice questions for us to get familiar with. And the whole, we're so used to, at least previously, was, of course, you only had one right answer, or it wasn't there was no fill in the blank or matching or anything like that. And so you really, gave us the opportunity to see a lot of different questions where it was, hey, you may see this fill in the blank question and have a, round to the nearest unit or whatever it might be, and get us comfortable with doing that. And of course, answering our questions with that because we had questions. And so I thought y'all did a great job. I thought y'all really, really prepared us well for the CBT format, even going as far as I remember doing the classes where you went through the whole handbook and page by page and answering questions we had about it. And I know, like I said, when I took School of PE year before, like I know I just don't believe they were going to do the same thing. Just going through it, I don't think that program would have done that. To be honest, I think that what you and your team did is very like y'all did a great job, and I have to believe that it was by far above and beyond what other courses were out there doing for their students.
Great. How about so you went through another program, one of our competitors. You went through ours. What did you like the most about ours? What did you find the most effective? And for you, what really stood out?
Yeah, so for me, and I'll say like starting out, what I really liked about school or electrical PE was that y'all were concentrated on electrical PE. Like School of PE, they have all kinds, civil, electrical, I'm sure more disciplines, but y'all were specifically electrical PE review. And I was like, okay, well, they're putting all their time and effort in power PE. And so that's a plus to me. And then the other thing, like, so the big thing was obviously the live class was huge, and having the same instructor all class long was big. School of PE has like multiple instructors that kind of come through, and per like part of the test, they have different instructors. Having you for the the whole time was awesome because you knew us, and like you knew like through chat in the live class and everything like that, you develop like relationships with these other students and your professor, your teacher, and I thought that was really really great. And the man the your curriculum that you put together for the review course, like awesome. The detail that you put into it, every single video going through different questions and stuff like that, that's not out there that I found in other places. There's like power, like when I was at School of PE, they would send you the PowerPoint slide of everything that the teacher would go through, and that was it. Like there wasn't a review course along with a live class and everything like that. uh to me, that was huge. That was awesome. Each like review course, and you had it broken down and everything, and if you went through that and you worked through that and did all the homeworks and everything like that, live class was kind of like you said before, was like a review. The student gets there, there's the review, and any questions that you might have had through going through the review course, you're able to ask, and you'll find that a lot, sometimes other students have the same question and stuff like that. And sometimes you're like, what's kind of surprising is you let us do this is answer questions in the chat, because if you've gone through the review course, you're able to answer the questions of people who you can kind of tell honestly who's gone through the review course and who hasn't in the live class, just from questions that come up. And you're able to answer questions and stuff like that. So the review course was also, like I said, awesome. Like completely separates electricalpreview.com from other review courses out there. And again, going back to the live class, like I mentioned, it was PowerPoints, and like the teachers go through PowerPoints, they go through each slide, kind of read over it. I mean, they'll answer questions and stuff like that, and even like the homework questions, same thing. It's a PowerPoint slide, the solutions on a PowerPoint slide, everything like that. Or I mean, obviously we have our notes that we get to write on, everything like that. But you come into class having what we have, a blank set of notes with basically the highlights that you want to break down. But you work through everything with us, and we get to see you work through it. And the same thing with the homework, we get to see you work through everything. And that's, to me, was just, yeah, that kind of separated, not kind of, it absolutely separates electricalpereview.com from the competitors. Just, like I said, the review course, second to none, live class, second to none. And like your prompt, like honestly, your promptness to answer, you must get like 1,000 emails a day, I'm sure, from students. And that you're able to answer them as quickly as you do is awesome. That and the live class chat, like having that and being able to talk to the other students and work through things with them was, I mean, again, just awesome. So I really can't say enough how just above and beyond this review course is compared to anything else that's out there.
How'd you like the live class homework questions?
I thought they were very good. Very, to me, they were very good in preparing you for what's out there. Because when you get to the PE exam, you see some things that, like, you may have, it's a subject you've seen before, but it's a question that is like, I don't know, at first when you look at it, and then when you actually sit there and start thinking through things, you're like, okay, I know this, and so I can at least start this and work my way through it and stuff like that. So I thought the live class homework was really, really good. It was you had some questions in there that would kind of, that the challenge, like the difficulty was good, because same thing with the PE. On the PE, there's some questions that are like, this is supposed to be this easy. And so they had some questions on there that were good in terms of, like, I can answer this in a couple minutes. Then you had some questions on there that were, I gotta really think about this and work through it and everything like that. So I thought you did a really good job of kind of spreading out the range of difficulty for the questions, and prepared us again really well for the actual exam. And having another thing I really liked about the live class was the NEC. We had an NEC question for every class, on the homework, and so getting to practice, or get practice every week with the NEC code book was really beneficial to me, because I don't deal a lot with NEC on a day-to-day basis. Being in the power industry, or the power company, NESC is what we use, and even that, we're not using every single day. So I needed a lot of practice with the code, and so having a code question every week to really get me comfortable with where everything was in the book was really beneficial. So I thought the homework, live class homeworks, were really, really, really good.
Good. Yeah, glad to hear that. It's a delicate balance. If you make everything really hard,
Right.
then you actually don't absorb a lot of it. You get discouraged.
That's right.
And when it's so hard that it takes so much time to solve them, you're spending too much time
Right.
on one problem. You're not getting a huge variety. So yeah, I love designing the live class homework problems, and it's a delicate balance. If you
Yeah.
don't have hard questions that really challenge and really, I call them icebergs or blind spots, you're never going to know you have these blind spots.
Right.
And so you'll get one problem and you can solve it no problem. But you get into the exam room, you see the same problem, but from a slightly different perspective,
That's right.
or you're working backwards from the values that you had to solve for last time. Those are now the values given. Now you got to work kind of backwards, and everything falls apart. But you can't, every question obviously can't be like that. You get demotivated.
Right.
You don't have enough time to only study those kind of questions. And you got to sprinkle in some easier ones to where, again, it leaves you second guessing. Like, is this it?
Right.
Am I missing something? You almost kind of second guess yourself. Same thing, because in the exam room, you're not taking a practice exam where you can flip to the back of the book and go, oh,
Right.
yep, that's it. I got it. I can move on. You're going to have to second guess yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Glad to hear that you enjoyed that. How about me? How accessible did you find me during live class or in the chat room interacting with me? Do you ever ask a question during live class that, I read your name and we answered it live? How accessible was I with email and stuff like that?
Yeah, so for sure, there were classes where question in the chat and it's answered for sure. And to be honest, you do a really good job of, you'll tell us, hey, I see your questions. I'm gonna get back to them. I'm gonna finish this real quick and go back to your questions. And you'll go back, who knows how many pages through the chat just to see the questions that came up. So I felt like during the live class, you really did a good job of answering as many questions as you could. And again, through emails, you were very prompt in your email response. A lot of times I'll be like, man, that was fast, because I know he's, you know, having to go through a ton of emails or something like that. So I felt like you were very, very available. And again, there were times where it may have been that the question doesn't get answered right away, but you always came back and if you could answer that question. Um, and if it wasn't answered in live class, you for sure answered it in either an email or I know we're encouraged to put stuff in the live class discussion board for any of those reasons. Is, hey, if a question's missed, which there's, who knows how many people are in that class, and so there's a ton of questions coming in. And so of course, sometimes questions are going to get missed, but we have the live class discussion board to immediately go in there and say, hey, does anybody know this? And you were always, what was great about what you did was you let us, the students, kind of, you know, try to help as much as we could, and then we would see you come in there and answer anything that was left unanswered, or maybe there's still a question about. And again, the email. So if I ever felt like I had a question about anything, I knew I could email you, and I knew I would get a response, a prompt response. And so that was that was huge to me. And yeah, I felt like you were, again, super available. You did, the best you could at answering as many questions as possible during live class without, and again, it's a balance there, because you have to progress class. We can't just sit there and, take so long to look through every single thing. So I thought you did a really good job of keeping a smooth, class going, along with making sure that all questions were answered. So yeah, I thought it was great.
Excellent. How about when you were studying? So you've been preparing for the exam for a while now.
Right.
What were your hardest subjects to learn? And then compare that to what were your easiest subjects to learn?
Yeah. So hardest for me was code, NEC. Just working my way through that. Just because, like, I felt like sometimes there were some easy code questions, and sometimes it was like, golly, like I had to go through 10 sections just to get the right answer to something. And just getting honestly confident in the NEC, because you could find what you think is the right answer and find out that, oh, I didn't see this exception, or I didn't notice the temperature on something, and your answer is wrong. So the NEC for me was the hardest, and just it took a lot of practice in that. And another subject, I guess it took me a little bit, was the like power devices, in terms of, like, diodes and full wave rectifiers, half wave rectifiers, and stuff like that. I had to do a lot of practice with that, just because I don't see that stuff every day. I don't have a lot of familiarity with it since college, and so just having to go back and look through those things and really study those, and not just, it was really neat getting to see, like, why all this stuff works, and with the inverters and rectifiers and everything like that. So it was really cool getting to learn all that stuff again, and getting to see, like, you did a great job of breaking everything down. Like, this is why this works, with your smoothing capacitors and everything like that. So I really enjoyed learning about it. It was just kind of like the nitty gritty of that was more, it took a little more time for me to get comfortable with, along with NEC, just again because familiarity. And I'll tell you something, that going into it, like back when I was taking school of PE, I honestly skipped the subject. I was like, there, I can't learn that, and like I can't take the time to learn that with what questions maybe on the PE was symmetrical components. And so, like, when I went through school, electricalpreview.com, like, I looked and I was like, dang, it's that? Okay, yeah. And so, like, the way you broke down symmetrical components was super helpful. It really, like, like we said in live class, like light bulb moments and stuff like that. I really saw just what it was, and not just kind of like how you work through, but what's the purpose of symmetrical components? Like, why is it even there? Why do we even use it? And so, yeah, that was like a super, to me, just it was really fun just learning all this stuff that, at one point you may think is too hard or it's been too long for you to do it. I really enjoyed it. And some of the easier things, just because I work with, again, familiarity, I work with them every day, was protection, transformers, and stuff like that. And, but again, going through class, I learned stuff that I didn't know about all that. And so it was really great just getting to learn stuff you've never seen, learn stuff you haven't seen in a long time, getting to learn that stuff at a level that you feel really good about, and also stuff you work with every day, getting to learn even more about that. And just, yeah, that was so. NEC, going back to answer your question, NEC and power devices were my two, I guess, most difficult. And then easy were protection, transformers, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll share something that's interesting with you. So NEC code questions, absolutely. Almost every person I talk to, that's going to be the hardest subject. And a lot of engineers that don't see it often or don't see it at all, they're scared of NEC questions. If we look at the exam specifications, it's the second largest subject by, what NCES calls the approximate number of questions. So it's really interesting. And if there's any engineers that are watching this, if you're scared of code questions because you don't use it, don't be. And the example I'll give is, the engineers that use the NEC the most typically are construction engineers for buildings, residential, commercial, healthcare, sports complexes, stuff like that. But they're so used to their own companies' design guides, their company's rule of thumbs, and their own personal ways of applying the code. And typically, when you apply the code, it's easy to upsize things, right, to allow for future expansion. The only thing that's going to get in the way is cost, right, your budget. But the code questions on the exam, it's black and white. It's, what's the minimum size, what's the maximum size, and a lot of building construction engineers that use the NEC a lot, they'll answer questions on the PE exam with what they're used to applying,
Right.
and they get it wrong. So it's not uncommon for me to look at a diagnostic report of a first-time student that was either self-studying or studying with a different program, kind of similar to yourself, looking at a diagnostic report and hear them say, I design buildings for a living. I'm great at what I do. I just need this PE license to move up, but I'm already kind of a project lead. How did I, only got 2 questions right on the NEC portion? How can that be? And it happens time and time again. And what's really interesting is counterintuitive. Engineers that do the best on code questions, typically, more often than not, it turns out to be engineers that they don't use it and they're learning it for the first time. So they're really being familiar with what are the upper and lower limits of each, whether it's fuses, breakers, conductor sizing, doesn't matter. They're learning those upper limits, and they're not falling back on what they've been using in the industry, which it's correct, right? But the PE exam isn't going to say, what's the largest size conductor you can use for this circuit? The sky's the limit, or I should say, right, the project budget is the limit, or however much the customer wants to allow for future expansion, or however much the customer thinks they're going to expand in the future. They don't want to have to, pull all this brand new cable again. So it's really interesting. I'm with you on symmetrical components being tough. The first time I took the PE exam, I had such a hard time learning symmetrical components. I skipped it. I gave up trying to study for it. I was getting about every other question right in practice, right? And even the questions I was getting right, I didn't know why. I didn't really understand what I was solving for. And it was just kind of one of those, all right, let me flip to the back of the book. Like, okay, I'm safe. I got that one right. Or flip to the back of the practice book, got it wrong. No surprise there. And I literally just said, you know what? I can either spend all of my time trying to understand this really complicated subject that, pretty much computers do for us nowadays, software. And I can get, all of these questions right, but I'm going to bomb the rest of the tests. I'm going to fail, So actually, when I mean it, when I say it, and people are always surprised to hear that, but I just stopped. And I figured that if I started focusing in too much, kind of putting those horse blinders on symmetrical components, I just wasn't going to do well. And, I never got my diagnostic report because I passed, but I would have been really curious to see symmetrical component. I know I didn't do well. Um, Most of the books that teach symmetrical components, uh, it's really hard to understand them. Um, in my experience, the older the engineering book is, the better it is, the easier it is to learn from. But symmetrical components, it's just so in depth, and that has turned into one of my favorite things to teach, especially live. It takes a little bit of time, but as long as you go through the proper steps and you kind of build it piece by piece, you realize it makes sense. It's not difficult. It's not hard. As long as you learn everything in the right order. And it also lends itself to other subjects really well. As soon as, students understand the concept of symmetrical components, not unsymmetrical faults, but, symmetrical components, how they apply to an unbalanced system, that really helps them unlock phasor diagrams
Right.
for motors, synchronous motors, generators, and phasor diagrams in general. It helps them understand positive and negative sequence systems. And then when we take that a step further and we look at unsymmetrical faults, that really helps just circuit analysis in general. So that's one of my favorite subjects to teach on. And when it comes to power electronics, yeah, as power engineers, and I just had a similar conversation on another interview call with a different student, but, as power engineers, we typically don't care how it works or what's inside of it, right? We
Right.
care we care about, can it accept the input, right? And is the output going to be what I need for whatever's downstream? Is it a UPS? Does it fit my backup time requirements? What are the thermal ratings? What type of batteries inside of it? Is there any battery maintenance I need to worry about? Do I need to, schedule a PM for these batteries? Um, you know, Very rarely do we get into the inside of this, black box, and how does it work, the switching, the different diodes, right? Controlled, uncontrolled, or not the different diodes, but the different
Right.
power electronic, like IGBTs, thyristors, all that good stuff. So yeah, it's really looking at those kind of instantaneous time forms. It's a unique subject that it's kind of in its own category, because the only time we look at those instantaneous sign functions is when we're looking at the inside of really what's happening in this power electronic box. Great. Um, what else? How about while you were studying, and this is a great question to ask you, especially since you took it once before, you weren't successful, you took it a second time, you were successful. So you probably tried all sorts of different approaches, but overall, right after the fact, what turned out to be the most effective use of your time when you were studying, and then what turned out to be the least effective? In other words, what would you tell engineers to completely avoid doing while they're getting ready for the CBT PE exam, and what would you encourage engineers to do more of?
Yeah. So what I found most effective was going through, so having a plan, honestly. So during the week, know what you're studying. Go through, like with electricalpeerreview.com, go through the review course, do your homework, everything like that, and then also do as many practice problems, and then put in the time during the week, but during the weekend, do those 8-hour days. They are not fun. I'll go ahead and tell you, like it stinks, being in a room studying for 8 hours a day when your family's out doing something else. But there's ways you can mitigate things, like wake up early, get up at 5 or 6, knock out those 8 hours, and you got the whole afternoon to be with your family. So it's just figuring out a way to get those long days in on Saturdays, and those 4-hour days, or even more on Sundays. And with that, sticking to that plan of, I'm going to do the review course, do my homeworks, everything like that during the week, and also some more practice problems. And in the review course, you have your quizzes and stuff like that. So that helps to have those practice problems too during the week. And then on that Saturday, that long day, it's, practice tests or practice problems, practice problems, practice problems. And on Sunday, it's, what did I miss from yesterday? Let's go over that. What am I still not comfortable with? I'm going to go over that again, work through those problems that you missed, everything like that. And again, on Sunday, reviewing what you missed, but again, practice problems. Or, okay, I'm going to take an hour on this Sunday to go back and look at what may still be unfamiliar to me from last week's review course, or what I was having trouble with and stuff like that. I'm going to take this time So Sundays were a lot of review days. Saturdays were the long either practice test or practice problems days. During the week, it was, of course, the live classes on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights, but also the homeworks and review courses and quizzes, and just spend as much time as I could each day to those. Are there going to be days where you're not able to study? Absolutely, it happens. Maybe even twice, or it's everybody's schedule is different. If you work in the power company industry, there's going to be storms. You're going to have to work, X amount of hours, and you may not have gotten to study as well as you wanted to that week. But just make sure the next week, you're able to pick back up into your routine and really keep working hard, because having that plan and really putting in the hours is what, honestly, it's what makes you a successful student. When I took the exam the first time, my study habits were like just like what you explained in your YouTube video. It was I'm gonna study, this for today and blah blah blah, and when I get to the weekend, well, maybe I'll do this. I'll plan on putting these hours in, but only pretty much if it's convenient, right? And so it was like a convenient study. It was I'll study kind of when it's convenient, and I was studying. The only thing I was doing was I was watching, their live classes. It was on demand, so I was watching the previous semester's live class and going through with them. But like they didn't, to be honest, like they didn't stress the importance of the practice test. They didn't stress the importance of going through these questions, and going through all these practice problems on your own and seeing like what you missed and reviewing that on a different day and going through the test. The way that you teach us is go through the test, do what you know, flag what you don't, and then go back, look at the ones that you flagged, work through those, and then go back through a third time and do like the ones you just absolutely or bang your head against the wall on, and then work through those, and finish the test, finish the rest of the time you have on those. And so, hearing you kind of coach us on studying and what it takes to be a successful test taker and a successful student really opened my eyes to what I needed to do. And so, yeah, what I would say to somebody getting ready to take this test is put in the hours now. You'll be so thankful that you did. Are you going to make sacrifices? Yes. Are you going to miss out on some things? Yes. But it's a delayed gratification, right? You're making sacrifices now so that you can be rewarded for those sacrifices later and make up for all that lost time during the studying time. You'll be able to really, you'll see you pass. You'll be able to really enjoy your time. It'll be behind you. You'll be able to enjoy as much time as you want to with your family and everything like that. And you encourage us to, have that, trip planned or that celebratory thing planned with your family at the end of it. Because like you said, your spouse and your family, they go through this too. So I would just encourage you, anybody taking the test, to put in the hours now, put in the hard work now. You'll be thankful that you did. Practice problems, practice problems, practice problems. Go through again. There were times on the PE exam at CBT where there were questions that I saw, and it wasn't in the. I didn't know them right off the bat, and to be honest, I couldn't like refer to them in the handbook because there was no mention of anything like it in the handbook. And so it was going back to the material that I've read through and I've worked through, and the live class, learning how to go back and really rely on that. So there is, in the CBT, if there's something that, at one point you would have thought, well, at least I can reference, I'll have my reference book, for that on the exam. So maybe I don't need to really know about it as much. So I can push it aside. I would encourage you to at least take a little time, kind of, maybe it's an hour one day. Don't spend all your time doing it. Maybe it's an hour one day, really kind of looking into that subject a little deeper and having really feeling, make sure you feel comfortable with it. I'll say the questions that I didn't know. I had to, like I said, I had to look back on all that studying I did in terms of like the reading and the theory that we go through and stuff like that. I had to rely on that. But because I went through the review courses multiple times, read through it, I was able to kind of really think through things, and just through all the practice tests and practice questions, I was able to just think my way and logic my way through that question to where at least I could write down an answer that I could defend to someone. I may not, even if I didn't get it right, I could tell someone, well, I selected this answer because of this, this, and this, and it could at least make sense to somebody. And so just really, and to me, for those 5 or 6 questions, that was good enough, because I know there's always going to be a question out there on a test that you've never seen before, or that you have to really, really think through. So to me, that was good enough to be able to defend my answers. And I felt like I was able to do that from going through those review courses and reading that theory. So really concentrate on practice problems, but don't ignore reading through the material at least once or twice. Put in that, again, like I said, put in that time. So that's what I would for sure recommend to anybody. And then again, studying. When you do your practice tests, and do practice tests, please do practice tests, because it will pay off. Only use the handbook because it's all you got. During that time, I wouldn't reference other material. It was the handbook, and if I got it wrong, I got it wrong. And so when you do your practice test, only use the handbook, because that's going to be all you got. And I'd also say, who knows, when you take this test, where we'll be in this pandemic. So if you still have to wear a mask during that time, take practice tests wearing your mask. Get used to that, because I had to wear my mask the whole 8 hours I was in there. So, and yeah, just have your practice day routine, and when test comes, you'll have been there before. So, that's for sure what I would recommend to future students.
Excellent. Yeah, and to talk a little bit about the mask, great point. I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's the first time this has come up in this series, but you're absolutely right. And I read similar firsthand accounts in our discussion board from other students as well. But definitely get used to wearing your mask the whole time, especially if you are currently working from home and you're only putting on a mask when you're running to the store or maybe going to pick up some groceries. If you're not used to wearing it for 8 hours, yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Try it out, put it on and see how long you can keep it on the first time you try that. I'll be surprised and impressed if you can keep it on for 8 hours the first time you try it. You got to kind of have to build up a tolerance for that too. Yeah. That's a fantastic point. All right. Really in depth, really appreciate all of the advice, sharing your experience. I think this is probably one of the most in-depth interviews we've actually done so far. So all excellent points. Before we go, is there anything else you can think of, or anything else that you personally would like to touch on that we didn't discuss yet?
I don't think so. Really, just to be honest, just thank you to you and your team. And I've said it in this interview, but I'll say it again. ElectricalPEReview.com is by far second to none. Best course out there. Zach and you and your team just do an amazing job. You really, really, really just put your students, it feels like, before yourself, and you just really do a great job and making sure that we're taken care of. And you exemplified that during the CBT process. And I just can't really thank y'all enough. So that's really it.
Excellent. Well, definitely appreciate the kind words. I always like to say, you're definitely the one that put in all the hard work to get you across the finish line. So again, big congratulations to you, Andrew. It's a win, not just for you, but your entire family, right? Especially your wife.
Right.
You're probably still trying to figure out what to do with all your free time now, but I'm sure she can help you find some things to do. But again, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for having this discussion, for sharing so much about your experience so that others can hopefully learn from it. And, congrats, enjoy the license when it comes, and please feel free to keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you.